Driving Basics 15, sharing the road. It's, I think, a bit of a divisive topic these. I certainly see some bad attitudes online towards cyclists and things like that. So I took my daughter Rosie out for a walk earlier, and we took our dog Betty as well. And I thought I'd film it to see what sort of things we're noticing. Are people giving us good clearance, etc, etc? And as I thought, actually pretty much everyone was very good actually. I certainly don't think the standard of driving is particularly low like some people do. I actually expected to have pretty much good standard, and really that's what we were met with. Now when I take my daughter out and when I go walking, you'll see the road that I'm walking on is there's no pavement available, so I need to take due responsibility for myself and of course for my daughter. Now rule H1, the new H rules that came in 2021 now, they are, H1 is a hierarchy of road users, and it's the most basic common sense rule that should have been a rule a long time ago, but essentially this makes it much easier to determine liability when there are incidents, and it also should be making us as road users consider how we're driving. So essentially, very basically, H1 of course puts things like lorry drivers right at the top of that hierarchy that need to be taking the most responsibility to avoid harm with the vehicle that they're driving. As a car driver, I can cause serious harm to, of course, more vulnerable road users, so horses, cyclists, pedestrians, motorcyclists, mobility scooters, all these types of road users. And so when I come around this bend, in my head I should have a horse and rider in my mind and be at a speed that I can respond safely if there is. That's the idea behind H1. Now what H1 doesn't do, which I see people moaning about, H1 does not diminish the responsibility that everyone has to actually look after themselves. So when I took Rosie on a walk, I do not at all have the attitude of it's other people's responsibility to look out for me and keep us safe. I very much have the attitude of we need to do everything possible to keep ourselves safe. So I'm wearing a high vis. We're making sure we're following rule number 2 in the highway code, which is to walk on the right, keep close to the side. We also follow the part of rule 2 which states about crossing the road when you're approaching a sharp right hand bend, which we'll show later. Now rule 163 is about clearance essentially. There's a lot of general guidance, certainly when it comes to overtaking, and it gives very clear guidance about overtaking pedestrians, for example. And it says give minimum 2 meter clearance in different light conditions, weathers give more, etc. And what I noticed today is that actually everyone was pretty much doing that. There was one which we'll go over later, but it wasn't terrible. But I thought actually that the clearance that people were giving us, just to show you a bit of a mishmash here, the clearance that people were giving us and the speed they were going past, I felt was really quite considerate. There's certainly no one that made me feel intimidated and made my daughter feel intimidated. I think she was getting a lot of waves and a lot of laughs because obviously we put the L plates on her bike, but at the same time I do feel that has an impact. You see a young kid and of course you see the L plate, you're just automatically programmed, aren't you, to kind of respond to those things. So I would be interested to know whether I'd got the same responses had I been just walking out on my own, for example. But I walk that road very regularly. I walk Betty, our dog, and I don't really have any problems. I always wear a high vis personally because I think I've had it before where we're dazzled by bright sunshine and you can't see someone that's coming towards you. Now, so as a car driver, I have rule H1 in my head at the moment, which is looking out for more vulnerable road users. I have rule 163 about giving clearance to those vulnerable road users, and I also have a very important one, which is rule 126. Now, rule 126 is about your stopping distances, and in particular, the first line is one of the first things I make sure learners understand. You must be able to stop safely in the distance you can see to be clear. Now, there's a couple of key bits in there. You must be able to stop safely, not just stop. The amount of dashcam videos I watch, and someone comes flying around a bend, emergency stops because something's there, and they think they've done an amazing job. They think their reactions are amazing, but you were way too quick in the first place. Every bend I go round, I need to be able to stop safely if I come around that bend and there's me and my daughter walking her bike. When we were out, I very much encouraged my daughters to understand which side of the road they walk on. I explained to them that they are riding a bicycle, but of course they're very slow, like Rosie especially. So we actually walk on the right, although of course if she was riding a bicycle, she would ride on the left. So what side of the road do we walk on?
The right.
The right, that's correct. And that is so that we can see the cars coming towards us.
And we don't go in the middle.
That's right, that would be very bad, wouldn't it?
But they would squish us.
They might crush us. That would be terrible,
So
wouldn't
we
it?
have to go on this
We
part.
got Betty Boo, we got to keep her safe, haven't we?
Yep, I'm keeping her.
That, of course, makes perfect sense at her age. I get her to understand early that approaching a sharp right-hand bend, she should cross over. And this, I think, is the most common one I see pedestrians not doing. Rosie, we're approaching a sharp right-hand bend. What do we need to do?
Cross over.
That's correct. So we'll do it a little bit closer to the bend, okay? And it's actually pretty scary. Even me driving at sensible speeds, you know, I've nearly hit a couple of pedestrians because they're literally just round a left-hand bend. They haven't crossed over. So you can see me and Rosie here. She's being encouraged now to cross over to the left side because we are approaching a right-hand bend. And she got bored and wanted to go home by this point, so we never actually went round the bend. Well done.
He's riding a bike.
He is riding a bike.
Like me.
Yeah. He's a bit more advanced, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he can do none hands.
I bet he can't do a flamingo pose.
No, I can.
You can. Look at that flamingo pose. That's super cool. Oh! Oh dear, you okay? Oh dear. Well, that's lucky you're wearing your helmet, isn't it? You okay? Well done.
Hurt my bottom.
Oh, you hurt your bottom. Oh no.
Hurt my
Can you get back on your bike? Okay, can you stop there, Rosie? Okay, we will, love. We will. Dee-dee-dee. But look, when the red car comes round, how visible we are. And we're not going to get suddenly cleaned out by that red car. Now, this is me approaching that bend, okay? So my view round it is terrible. So rule 126, I'm going to be able to stop safely. The distance I see is clear, so I'm going to go about 20. Now, as I come round, imagine we were stood there, and I've got very little time to respond to that. And if I will respond, don't get me wrong, but if I'm a little bit too fast for the situation, we've got problems. There's signs reminding us pedestrians in the road for 300 yards. That's because there's houses here, there's no pavement, and we were on the road later. No one really came round the bends too fast. I thought the speeds were great. There was one car, which is this red one here, and I felt this was a little bit close. Look, you are looking for a minimum 2 meters. It's very difficult to gauge on a dash cam, etc., on my camera, whether they've given the appropriate distance. The lady was lovely. She was smiling and waving at Rosie, and I think just a little bit too close for me, but there's nothing dangerous in it, and it's not to highlight, you know, people's bad driving or anything like that. She was lovely and slow, so she's reduced the risk fine, you know, and that's no real issue. But that's the only one actually that I felt was a little bit closer than I would have liked.
This is the best thing. This is the best day ever today because I'm going bike riding with you.
Best day ever?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Do you think it's the best day ever?
I think it's the best day ever. And then before you go, can you have a check behind you? Good girl. And then, if you're happy it's safe, you move. Well done.
Safe.
Good job.
Who's calling me again?
Who's calling you?
Oh, it's Katie.
Katie? Is that Mummy?
Yes. Hello, Mummy. I can't help you right now. I'm going bike riding. Bye. I'll be there soon.
Oh, good job. You good?
I reckon it's Mummy.
I don't think it's Mummy.
I think it's Mummy. It went too fast, I couldn't even see. Maybe it's Mummy. Going, keep going. We have to keep going. Like Daddy said to me. Love to go bike riding. Do you too like to go this one?
The other reason I wanted to do this video is, I mean, the most important one for me that I see not happening is the crossing of the road approaching a sharp right hand bend. That's actually quite common. People don't make themselves visible. You walk on the right so that you can see someone that's going to hit you, and you cross over to the left on a sharp right hand bend because you're not going to be visible to the traffic that's now coming towards you. But the other reason actually I wanted to do it is I see a lot of people say online things like, oh, the standard of driving is terrible these days. And I don't think it is. And I think it's important to try and spread that little bit of positivity now and then. Actually, everyone did a great job. If you look at the journey that me and Rosie took, we must have encountered around about 30 cars, I'm going to say, I guess. Now, if one of those vehicles had done something, a little bit dodgy, that would be 1 out of about 30. And that doesn't mean that the driving standard is poor. That just means you've had one person maybe that has made a mistake. Even when people make mistakes, they might not then go and make another mistake for a year. I make mistakes now and then. And I look and obviously it's a bit more embarrassing for me because I'm a driving instructor, but when I do make a mistake, it doesn't mean I'm a bad driver. So I try not to judge people, and I think that's something I was chatting to Dad about this last night. And when people say, oh, the driving standard is shocking, personally I don't really think it is. I think generally the driving standard is quite high, and I also think you've got a lot of people now starting to follow channels like mine and interested in developing themselves further, keeping current, making sure they are taking accountability of their driving. So I think little things like that actually give me good heart, and it was lovely to walk out today with Rosie and there was nothing that happened, no negative feelings on that at all. But hopefully, yeah, that's Driving Basics 15. That's just about being a pedestrian, your responsibilities. Remember to always take them seriously. It's your responsibilities to keep yourself safe. But I would suggest rule H1 is probably the big one that we take into consideration, in terms of you always need to be thinking about people more vulnerable than you. I'll see you for the next one.